Hey, what's up, YouTube? We're back. We're the Brangers. I'm Phil.
I'm Jen.
And happy Thanks Patrick's Day. Hey, YouTube. We are back again. We are the Brangers. I'm Phil.
I'm Jen.
And today is St. Patrick's Day, so happy St. Patrick's Day. Tonight we're going to talk about fundraising. Alright, so Jen, what are some strategies that we're going to employ this time around to fundraise and bring our daughter home?
So, we've got a few, but really the first one is more of an attitude than it is a strategy. We're approaching this adoption faithful that God is going to provide the way and the means for it to happen. In all honesty, if we did not have that kind of attitude, we wouldn't be this far to begin with. We wouldn't have already made the decision to pursue this adoption. How long do you think it would have taken us if we were just trying to fund this adoption under completely our own capability and steam?
Well, if we were waiting to have enough savings to pay for this adoption, we would probably never be there because it's basically an entire year's salary. But yeah, beyond, well, not quite an entire year's salary, but even beyond that, you know, if you're trying to do something on your own steam and with your own power, you know, there's always excuses. And so I know just a few months ago, you know, some of my excuses were that Micah wasn't ready to have a little sister yet or a sibling yet, and we weren't ready as a family. We were still dealing with some stuff with Micah, and we weren't in that place yet. But there's always going to be excuses. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, you know, if we were waiting for us to be ready and our family to be ready, I don't think it would have ever happened.
Mm-hmm. And just, I feel like our story since the time we were married, really going forward, is just a story of God providing and equipping where He's called us. There's some things that we have done that I know were beyond our personal capability to do that we were miraculously equipped to do. And then even with Micah's adoption, it was just time and time again, we saw God provide and equip us when we took those small little steps forward in obedience. There was a time where we needed $1,200 to pay a fee, and there was an anonymous donation that happened through our church one day before this fee was due.
Yep. And that was part of Micah's adoption.
Yes,
so that was
part
a fee
of Micah's
for
adoption. And this family had donated a lump sum that was going to be split between 4 different adoptive families, and it just so happens that that number split, we were to receive $1,200, exactly that fee that we needed the next day. And there was just countless times where God provided like that in a timely way with grants. And we're already beginning to see Him provide in those small ways in this adoption. We have had fees waived and fees slashed in half because we were former clients, because we're just updating our home study. But also, just yesterday, we got some great news that we have received a scholarship through our adoption agency for almost the exact amount in which we need to pay our next fee to move forward with our home study visits. And we just applied for that Tuesday. And we got it, you know, just yesterday, and are super thrilled about that. And we see God's provision in that already, and we're just super excited about how He's going to continue to provide that going forward.
So what is the next step for fundraising for us?
Okay.
For any adopted family.
Well, yeah. And really, it involves a lot of hard work on your part. Yes, God is going to provide, but you cannot sit idly by and just wait for money to fall in your lap. That's just not how it's going to work. So really kind of the first means that we approached when we look at stuff was something I was just speaking about, scholarships and grants. And there are very few grants that you can apply for before you complete your home study, but the couple that you can, we're going to do. And then there is a list of about 15 of those that we're going to send in applications for. And all of those applications are very timely and lengthy and require essays or long recommendation letters and stuff like that, but we're going to do it. And then the second is more like traditional fundraising that you would think of. So the first is we have launched a profile on a crowdfunding site. Yep. We have a profile with You Caring, and I'll let Phil talk about why we went with You Caring, why we decided to go that route. There are a lot of different decisions.
Yeah, so there are lots of different types of crowdfunding sites. Some of them are nonprofit, some of them are for-profit, some of them are big names that everybody knows about, like Kickstarters and GoFundMes and those kind of things. But one of the big things that you need to think about when you're fundraising for something like an adoption is a way for people to donate in a tax-deductible manner. And we actually thought about this for a long time before we launched on You Caring. But a lot of people that donate money to you are going to ask if it's tax-deductible. And if they write you a check to you, it is not tax-deductible. It is a gift from them to you. There are a lot of nonprofit organizations out there that the way it works is they'll write a check to that nonprofit. And since they're writing a check to that nonprofit, it is then tax-deductible because it is not a gift to you. But the trick with those sites is since they are making a donation to the nonprofit and not to you, you are not guaranteed to get the money that people are giving to those nonprofits. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times you probably will, but there are a lot of instances where you may not for one reason or another. It does cost money to run a nonprofit. And so just kind of to be honest to the people who are donating money to our adoption, we wanted to make sure that that money that they gave actually went towards our adoption and not somewhere else, not to another nonprofit, unless they wanted to give money to those nonprofits. So we actually went with You Caring. It's not a tax-deductible way for people to give money to us, so they aren't going to be able to write that money off on their taxes, which may be a hindrance to some people, but we think that it is more honest up front, that people know that if they're giving money to this adoption, that money is going towards this adoption.
And the other caveat is the money that we have to raise, we have to do it in a very short amount of time. They've given us 6 to 9 months as our estimated time to travel to go get our girl. So something that happens with these nonprofits is that it can take a month or longer for the disbursement of that money to happen, and we just don't think we have that kind of time to wait around for a disbursement when we have a fee that needs to be paid. So I'll move on to kind of like the next kind of fundraiser thing you do, and it would be really selling goods is basically what it boils down to. So like t-shirt fundraisers, which we plan on doing, a garage sale, selling some of our stuff on eBay, but also like I've thought about selling desserts because I've got some pretty good dessert recipes that people like, so maybe we'll do that. But with those type things, you also have some tax considerations.
Yeah, so with the other tax consideration, you're thinking about the taxes of the people that are donating money to you. But once you get into a place where you are selling goods and services, one big piece that people don't think about when they're fundraising is if you are selling t-shirts or you're selling desserts or whatever, that is technically taxable income. And we were looking at some numbers a few weeks ago, and it said something like 62% of adoptive families are actually audited every year. Just because when you get done with your adoption, there's this huge tax credit, and there are just lots of different caveats with the tax credit and what qualifies and what doesn't qualify, and all of this extra fundraising that they know that adoptive families are doing. And so there's all of this money that's changing hands that they want to make sure it's happening above board. And we want to do it in such a manner that is completely above reproach. We don't want to be questioned at the end of the day about where this money came from or where it went. So we want to be very clear. We want to make sure that we do everything completely legally. So we're talking to CPAs and we're talking to former tax professionals that are helping us through this process and telling us what we need to claim on tax returns and what we need to tell donors and all that stuff. So if you have questions about that stuff, we do have some resources that we can reach out to and answer some questions. So feel free to comment down below or shoot us an email or something like that, and we'll try to get you some answers.
And we definitely plan to sell some goods. We'll just be paying taxes on those goods.
Exactly.
And just, making the preparations to do that. Also, benefit events. We hope to have a couple of these. One would be like an online auction. Another that we did with our last adoption is we kind of had a concert, a benefit concert. But it could look like a benefit concert or benefit dinner. We're not really sure yet. We're still fleshing that out.
Yep.
But part of those typical fundraiser kind of things is you don't want to spread yourself too thin and do so many that you're always asking people for money. You kind of want to put your chips in certain places and really invest in those things. So we kind of keep that in mind as well. But also, we're trying to gather some extra work income. Phil is going to apply to be a Lyft driver and start doing that on the weekends. I do something called, and Phil does it sometimes too, called user testing online, where you basically are giving consumer reviews for websites and such.
Yep.
And I'm trying to do some online tutoring and that sort of thing in addition to the work I do. But I see God's provision in that too, because I'm going to be working more regularly in April and May, more regularly than I do most all year. So we're going to keep working really hard to bring in those funds too. Kind of the third sort of strategy that we have when approaching this adoption is something that Phil really brought forth, but is we feel like we really need to cast a large net. And I'll let Phil talk about what that means and why we feel that way.
So one reason that we feel like we need to cast a larger net is in our personal field of influence, there are a lot of adopted families, and that's
fabulous.
It's really, really awesome, but it's also a problem in fundraising, because when you have a lot of different people asking for money all the time, people turn it off. Just nobody's listening, nobody's donating money.
It's just understandable.
Completely understandable. I don't have a problem with that at all. But it does cause a problem for us in that the people that we talk to on a regular basis, the people who are probably watching this video right now because they're our friends on Facebook, are probably already turned off or getting ready to turn off, and that's okay. We still love you.
Tapped. We love you.
But
we're telling
part of the reason we're doing this YouTube thing is that we want to cast a larger net. And so with that, if you are one of those people who click through a Facebook link to get to this, one thing about YouTube, and we want as many people to see these videos as possible, not just for fundraising, but also just for the content that's going to be in these videos over the next year. But part of how YouTube works is the more that a video is interacted with, the more that they spread it. So if you're going to write a comment, don't go back to Facebook and comment where you clicked. Don't comment on Facebook. Comment down below the YouTube video so that YouTube sees that interaction. Click the like button. Click the subscribe button. Interact with this video so that YouTube sees that it's doing something, and they'll spread it out more. So that's part of what we're doing to cast a wide net is with these videos. We're also looking at avenues with both of our jobs to possibly reach people that we don't normally reach on a normal basis. Just trying to get the information out there to people that aren't necessarily in our arm's reach, but 2 and 3 people past that, so that our net gets wider. We're not tapping the same people over and over and over again and driving our friends nuts, but we're still able to fundraise without being that annoying bird on your shoulder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So I'll talk a little bit more about like the actual fee breakdown, because I'm sure that that's information that people who are contributing to something would like to know,
as well as people who are thinking about adoption.
Exactly. That these are the expenses you might be looking at, and then also for people who would like to contribute that this is legitimate and where's my money going? You know, they deserve to know that. But I really like what Phil is saying about casting a wide net. It sounds kind of funny to like talk about that openly, but it's something that when you're fundraising for an adoption, you really have to think about. And I think that other people who are going to take steps forward and decide to adopt, that could definitely benefit you for sure. But what would you say are the two best ways for people if they would like to help in our fundraising efforts?
Definitely share this video, or share a video, maybe not this one, but share one of our videos over the next year. Share it, subscribe. Beyond that, share the You Caring page. If we post a fundraising something on Facebook or on YouTube, share that. Get it out to as many people as possible. Again, for that reason of not being the chirping bird.
And that's just sharing it. Even if you can't contribute, just sharing it can, translate into dollars toward our fundraising. I think You Caring has on their page that every share on average can mean an additional $30 towards your fund. And that's just from sharing it to someone else, which is pretty cool that you can help in that way. And of course, like if you feel led to contribute to us through participation in our fundraisers or through our You Caring page, we just want to let you know how, just in advance, how sincerely thankful we are for that to help us bring our daughter home. We really feel like that is God-led, and we feel like that generosity flows from people, especially when God leads them, and that's why we say we're confident that He will provide, but we know He doesn't just provide through grants, and He provides through the generosity of others. So it doesn't just come out of thin air. So just thank you.
So where does all this money go?
Okay, so in total, from our most conservative estimates, we need about $35,000 to pay for all the fees associated with bringing our daughter home. And we need that within a period of 6 to 9 months, which is pretty narrow. So for the U.S. component of those fees, we're looking at about $13,000 of that $35,000 going toward U.S. fees, which is our home study, it's our immigration application, it's our dossier fees, which is on paper representation of our identity that goes to the birth country of our daughter, so that they know who we are and they can do the official match and referral, and that's associated with another fee. And then on the international side of things, it will be approximately $19,000 for travel and accommodations in country, for an orphanage contribution toward the orphanage that our daughter was associated with before she was with her foster family. Also, just all the in-country documents and fees that, they say it's okay for us to leave the country with her, which is very important, of course. But then, that brings us a little bit shy of that $35,000, and you might have noticed that. But we're hoping that we can raise an additional $2,000 to $3,000 in anticipation that there will be some initial medical expenses associated with our daughter's needs. And that's where the rest of that is going to go. And we don't take asking others, for funds lightly. We take that very seriously. We know that there are some people who really just don't understand why you would move forward with an adoption when you yourself don't know where those funds are coming from. Yeah. We know that in itself, fundraising for an adoption in itself, can be kind of controversial. But again, I feel like we've talked about how we really feel like we are being obedient and how God is leading us, and we have just seen how He has provided along the way, and in the past with our son's adoption, and then now with this adoption, how He's already starting to do this. But for anyone who contributes to our adoption, we just want to make some commitments to you. And the first is, our primary reason for fundraising is to get our girl home. and then that little secondary thing of maybe paying for a few of her medical expenses. We will work our tails off to do everything in our power to get all the grants possible, to all the avenues where we can increase our income. We are going to work hard the whole time until every last dollar of those funds that we need is raised. And in the unlikely event, and I say unlikely because we are being kind of conservative in our estimates, but in the unlikely event that we have funds that have gone beyond our expenses at the end of the day, we are committing to contribute any excess to the Chosen Project Grant Fund, which is actually run by our local church. And to this day, they have already contributed over $36,000 in funds for families to help bring home their children, help complete their adoptions, and that has translated. Some are still awaiting their kids coming home, but 14 kids will be helped to be placed with their forever families because of those funds. So we really feel like that, if we did have any excess, that would be a great place to contribute it. So, you have anything to add?
I don't. I think that's going to wrap it up. So we will see you all in a few days.
Thank you
very
so
much.
much.